coming. My name is Jason. I do some of the technical work here with the space. It's a space for activism in the arts. We have a 24-hour access community dark room. We have a Chroma Key room, often called a green screen room. That's where we sit in front of a lit up green screen and we replace that with some digital image. And like the weatherman, for example, he stands up in a green screen and they replace that image with your states or your area, and then you show the different weather in the area. We also have a radio station. I was just telling Maniola about it, and that's anybody could have their own radio show here. It's community based, and we're looking to grow the station. The station's been here for about 2 years, and we do a lot of cultural events here on the weekends, and on the weekdays we have live jazz, Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually in the late evening. Today I'm going to show you the software that most professionals use for video editing. It's called Adobe Premiere, and you could load it on a Mac or a PC. And the cost has recently become very affordable on a month-to-month use plan. If you were to buy the software outright, it would cost you over $600. But if you rent the software, it's about $30 a month, and you always get the latest version. I'm going to talk to you.
Excuse me, Jason, I think you should add that if you skip months, you don't lose or pay any penalty, right?
Yeah, there's no penalty. If you miss a month, if you think you're not going to use it in June, for example, just don't pay it, and you won't be able to use it until you pay for it on another month when you're ready to use it. So they're real good about that. They understand that there's other professionals out there or other people out there that want to be legit, that would like to be able to use the software without paying an arm and a leg. So I'm going to talk to you about what these different little windows are, and then I'm going to close out the program and we're going to create a new project, and I'll walk you through that. So you're going to have two monitor screens, one here and one there. One's called the source and the other one's called the program monitor.
I'm sorry, the middle one is the source?
Yeah, the middle one is the source.
Okay.
And the one to the right of it is the program monitor. Down here is all your files that you're working with. Your video files, your text overlays, your like titles, your audio files, your pictures, all that's organized here. And by default you drag and drop things from your desktop or wherever the files are right into here, or if you right click you get add, there's an option to add, the way you would open up a file in Word, for example. This right there is your sequence, and that's clips that you take from here, you drag those into your sequence, and everything on your sequence shows up on the program monitor. The source monitor is whatever you choose to from your project to take something from. So this is Bumper Jeremy Stolak, the whistleblower for Blackwater. If you double click that, it's going to show up here, and then you'll have the option to set your in point and your out point. You'll go through the duration of the footage and basically just grab the segment that you want. Your in point and then your out point, and then you drag it down to your sequence.
So when you drag it up there, you get a visual of what it is you're dragging up there?
Yeah, you're going to see and you're going to hear it.
Okay.
And I'll get to how that's done in a moment. I'm going to start a new project and we'll go through that process.
Okay.
This palette right here is your effects. If you load an effect on one of these clips that you have on your sequence, then this will be all your adjustments. All the adjustments for that will pop up. So, without further ado, I'm going to close this project and start a new project and walk you through all the steps and things you need to consider when you create a project.
I'm sorry, before you start, what's the bottom section called? I didn't get that name.
It's called the
Where
the timeline. They call it a sequence.
Okay, sequence.
You could also interchange that with timeline when you say timeline. Well,
Okay.
don't know what you're talking about. If you're talking to a video professional or if you're trying to explain it.
Okay, thank you.
So the latest version of Adobe Premiere is Adobe Premiere CC. CC stands for Creative Cloud. And all that means for now is that they store your license information and your account information online. So if you're renting the software, you could have the software on multiple computers, and as long as you logged out of the last computer, you could use Adobe Premiere with your account on another computer. Now there's two things we're going to create. We're going to create a project which contains all the files that you'll be working with, and then you're going to create a sequence. And the sequence is exactly that. It's that thing on the bottom of the screen where you have all your clips laid out. Why do you do two at the same time? Well, with Adobe Premiere, you could have multiple sequences in a project, and you could do what's called embedded sequences. You could take one sequence and put it into another sequence. And the reason for that is you might want to change something in that smaller sequence, and they'll automatically reflect in the bigger sequence. Which is great for our projects with indie media, is we have maybe 5 segments in the whole episode. So we work on all the little segments that are 5-6 minutes long, and then we put them in the episode, and then if we have to tweak or change something in one of the segments, we go back to those smaller segments in the sequence, and all the changes reflect through the whole project. So we're going to create a project. It's going to ask us for a file name. It's also going to want to specify the location. Adobe Premiere always defaults to the location you were in last time. You might want to change it depending on what you're working on. Ideally, you're going to want your files organized. It's the Chicago Independent Television folder right here, and as you see, I have episode 96, 99, episode 100. I'm going to go up a level, and I'm going to create a folder. Call it training. Folder, and file name, I'm just going to leave it as training, select folder. Oh yeah, here's the file name. It defaults to Untitled as the file name, so I'm just going to call it train. Now something to keep in mind for the future, if you want to pursue video editing and you want to do a lot of projects, you're going to want a render card. And what is a render card? In layman terms, it's basically a game card. You know, people that are into those computer games, they get these really fancy graphics cards. Adobe Premiere will take advantage of that. What does that mean? Without it, it could take 10 hours to render a 30-minute episode. But with the graphics card, it would have it rendered in 45 minutes. So you're saving time tenfold.
Do you have a sample of a graphics card, and is it something compatible with PCs and Mac computers?
Certainly PCs. With the Mac, since they do everything in-house, they'll pick a few graphic card manufacturers that they accept. So you're a little bit more restricted with Mac.
Okay.
The good thing about Mac, however, is they only allow graphics cards that they recommend, which probably means higher quality graphics cards, higher end.
Compatibility.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that compatibility.
It won't crash any.
So
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now this screen here, this is what you get when you log into your Premiere account?
Uh, I'm already logged in, and I don't have it set up that way on here. Although, if it's something that you're renting, and when you do launch Adobe Premiere, if you're not already logged in, it'll prompt you to log in.
Okay. But my point is that this is the starting point for working on a project in Premiere.
Exactly.
This is the screen you'll see once you're ready to get started, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's asking us the file name that we want to create for the new project. So, if you do have a graphics card, it's going to show up here, and you'll be able to select it. These options not relevant if you're working with digital video, which most cameras they either store to a memory card or a hard drive.
So the only points we need here is that top blue line.
Yeah, this right here, which is the file name, and this right here, which is where it's storing it, what folder, what hard drive.
Okay.
And if you have a graphics card, this right here, select the graphics card.
Okay, fantastic.
And we'll click on OK. So it's going to load the default window, your effects palette, your source monitor, your program monitor, your project, which is the list of your list of the files you're working with, and these are your tools. I'll go into that once we get a sequence. You notice that this is blank right here. There's no tracks, there's no audio tracks or video tracks. That's because we haven't created a sequence yet. So to create a sequence, you want to go up to the File menu and click New. One of the options for new things to create, other than the sequence, is we could create a title. We could do bars and tone. That's where we have the color bars and it goes kind of annoying, but they have it there because they still use that. Black video, if you just want to have black video in the beginning, you can create that. And the universal.
What is a black video?
Essentially, it's just that. It's just video that's just black.
Okay.
There's very few instances where you might want to do that.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you're submitting a video to a television network, they might specify so many seconds black video before you program.
I got you. Okay.
So we're going to create a new sequence now that we've had our project open. Now here's when things get a little technical, because what type of sequence setting you use really depends on two things. It depends on the resolution and format of the footage that you're putting into the program, but more importantly, it depends on the settings for your final project when you render everything down to one file. And some things to ask yourself is, what is the resolution of my video? Is it 1080p HD format? Is it 720p? Is it 480 or 720 by 480, which is standard definition?
Is that contingent upon how it was shot?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have a new video camera and you want to have the highest quality possible, avchd is what you're most likely going to use. What does avchd mean? Well, that's the industry standard video format. Any new camera you buy today, even if it's a consumer camera, is most likely going to say avchd on it, and that's the format that it defaults to. So we're going to go with that only because we have footage in our hard drive that's that format. 1080p, that's HD. And when you open that up, you have all these other options. And the difference is the frame rate, really. You have 24 frames per second. You have 25 frames per second. Most likely you're going to be doing 30 frames a second. That's what standard television is.
Okay, so that camera you just named is like 30 frames, right?
Right.
Okay. Per second?
Right. And then once we select that, down here we're going to give our sequence a name. And I'm just jumping right into this. I didn't really plan out what footage I'm going to use, so I'm just going to call this something. And we're going to grab some footage off my hard drive. So now that we have our sequence, which means we've got our video tracks, we've got our audio tracks. By default, 3 video tracks and 5 audio tracks. You can always add and remove audio tracks. And a lot of those options is through the right click of the mouse. You go over here somewhere and you right click, and the option to add or remove tracks will be there. Importantly, we're going to load some content. So I'm going to right click right where the project window is, and there's an option to import. Like I said originally, you could also drag and drop. If you open up your desktop or a file folder, you can drag and drop right into that project window.
I'm sorry, what did you click to get that menu?
Right in the project area.
You can click anywhere, right click?
Yeah, click anywhere inside this area.
Okay.
But you want to right click,
Oh.
and then that brings up the import option. What happens if you load something that's lower resolution than what you set your sequence at? Because our sequence is at HD, it's at 1080p. What happens is the image or the video size is going to be smaller than the screen size.
Oh.
We're going to want to adjust that. So I don't know if any of you are into alien conspiracies, but this is the citizens' hearing at the press club that happened last year in April, with all the disclosures of military personnel coming forward, mostly retired. So I'm just going to grab one of these random ones. And these are low resolution. They will be smaller than our sequence size. So you can see it loaded right here in our project.
Okay.
And processes the audio down here. It's almost done processing that. I'm going to double click on it. When I double click on it, oh, there it is. When I double click on it, it's going to show up in our source screen.
Okay.
And basically we get grab from it whatever it is. This is our little scrub bar right here. We can drag this back and forth to scrub through any part of this. And it may be a little awkward at first, but this we could zoom in to an area of that video, so we could do a little bit more finer scrubbing. This clip right here that we're looking at is about 9 minutes long, and we're at about the 6.5 minute mark.
Question.
That tells you where you're at, and that tells you the total time.
The first and the last, right?
Right, yeah, the first one right here is where your cursor is at.
Okay.
And this one right here is the total time. So
now this is the one. This is one that you said is smaller.
Right.
Than what you.
You're gonna notice the consequence of that when I drag it down to the sequence, and they'll show up here as a smaller window.
Okay.
Inside the screen.
All right.
So say that I have an area here and I want to complete this person's sentence. Well, if I drag right here, it's going to be pretty cumbersome, or not cumbersome is not the right word, it's going to be pretty crude. So if I want to fine tune it, I could use the left and right arrow keys of my mouse, and that will go frame by frame. And if I hold down the left or right arrow key, it'll go through it at a slower speed.
And I hope you're here all Wednesday Friday.
And I go backwards with the left arrow key.
And you stayed all day.
So say I want to stop here, I'm going to either click on this, which is the end point, or I'm going to press the I button, I for end. When I do that, you see right there, it's set its selection point at that at where my cursor's at.
And oh, that's by holding the arrow and then pressing the I key?
Just by pressing the I key. The only time you're going to press the arrow key is if you want to change your position in that clip. Because right now,
And I hope
I'm
you're here
changing my
always Friday.
position.
Uh-huh.
Because
If I get to a position where I want to start the clip or stop the clip, then I stop and I press I for endpoint and I press O for outpoint.
Okay, cool.
You are amazing. And our
So she just said you are amazing. I'm going to stop there. So I'm going to set my outpoint there. And now, there's a couple options when you drag it down. And by dragging, I mean you hold down the left mouse button and you literally drag the content of the mouse down to your sequence. If you just want to drag the video, or if you just want to drag the audio, you have that option at the bottom here. You have drag video only or drag audio only, and you're basically just dragging those little icons. We're going to drag the whole thing. Bring it down. There it is. And it's going to tell us, and they added this in newer versions of Adobe Premiere to make it easier for people. It's going to look at the size of the first footage you drag in, and it's going to look at your sequence size. And it's going to suggest to you, do you want to change the sequence to match your footage, or do you want to keep the sequence the same? In this case, say we have material, content with different sizes and different formats. I'm going to keep the existing setting. That way you can see what that does to that clip is on our sequence, you can see that the actual footage is a small box inside the whole screen. Because it's doing everything pixel to pixel. What we want to do with that is select that clip on the sequence, and by having it selected, we're making it vulnerable to whatever we want to do with it. We're going to zoom it in. We're going to increase the size to the size of the screen. That way there's some conformity to all the clips and material that we're using. So our effects palette, when we select a clip, there's some default options that are going to show up. And one of the default options is motion. Motion is going to allow us, when we bring that down, to scale the size of the clip. Right now it says it's at 100%. We want to bring that up to about 250, maybe 300% to fit the screen. So I'm going to drag it out. I'm holding down the left mouse button as I drag over that number. If you know exactly what the number is, you could just enter that number. 311%. And
I'm
now
sorry, which buttons were you holding?
it was just the mouse. So if I put my mouse cursor over here, you're going to see two little arrows opposite of each other. It's hard to see on this screen, but
What are they going like?
they're just going like left and right.
Okay.
And that's indicating that if you drag the mouse with the left mouse button down, that it's going to allow you to go up and down. Increasing that number by moving the mouse to the right, and decreasing that number by moving the mouse to the left.
Okay.
So that's one clip. I just saved it. The hotkey I use to save. You want to always save. Every time you make a change, it's a good idea to save, because you never know if the stability of the computer is going to undermine you. So, in a lot of different video applications, the hotkey for play and stop is the spacebar button. You won't get that in Microsoft Media Player. They try to come up with their own conventions, but you'll get that in just about every other video program. So I'm going to press the spacebar and it's going to play what I have in the sequence.
And I hope you're here all the way through Friday because you are amazing.
Right.
And they did end at the same time, right?
It ended at where
On your sequence bar, they
yeah.
ended at the same time. Now,
Yeah.
that notice that you got a little earlier, it was asking you if you wanted them to end at the same time, right? A Premiere notice that you got.
Oh, that was asking me whether or not if I want my sequence to be adjusted to the first clip I dragged down, or if I wanted to keep the sequence settings the same.
Okay.
I kept the sequence settings the same, and that's why we had to zoom in that clip
Okay.
to the screen.
So another question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. When you enlarge your what do you call that? A source. You know, if your source is too small, this clip. And if you enlarge it, does that take away any of the quality of the?
For sure, you're only going to get as much quality as what you put into it. So it's not going to add any more detail when you zoom in, because that detail doesn't exist.
Yeah. So it could if you have other clips that are the right size, you know, for lack of a better term, if they are the right size, and then you use that clip, it'll be a noticeable change. It's not like Premiere does any adjustments to these clips.
Exactly, and a good point to go with that is that if you're working on a professional project, you're going to want to make sure that your source files are the highest quality for what you're putting out.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We have one clip down so far, and we might want to add something else to that. Let's pick something else from here. And we're going to, when we add another clip, we're going to apply some transitions.
5, and then hit toggle B to watch the scene from here of the film. Insert 3, yes, SARI in this room. You're all invited. By the order.
So I'm going to start here. Again, I'm just getting a feel for
you're all invited.
What areas I'm going to select.
It's 1 hour and 15 minutes. Document.
So he's in the middle of making a point. I'm just going to grab a small segment of that and drag that down. And so I've got two clips next to each other. There's no transitions yet, so it's going to be what they call a hard cut. That's when you don't have any transition between the two clips that are next to each other.
Now, when you say you have them next to each other, is there other options to put them?
Say again?
You have them, you say next to each other. Is there another option to put them?
Yeah. We have more than one video track, so I could have one video over the other, and you're not going to notice the difference unless if you apply some transition or some transparency between them. I don't know if you're familiar with Photoshop, but with Photoshop you get into what's called blending modes, and for effects you could have different relationships between the types of colors between the two video layers. The other you want to have one video track over the other is for Chroma Key. For example, like the Weatherman, you would have the weather information on the first track and your Weatherman on the second track with the green screen. You apply a filter that takes that green and makes it transparent, but nothing else. So that way you just got the Weatherman and you've got the weather information right below that track. So you're meshing the weather information with the Weatherman. And it looks like that the Weatherman is actually pointing to something that you're seeing, when it really is just a green screen.
Which is on another track.
Yeah, which is on another track. Adobe Premiere comes with a convenient way to do transitions. There's manual ways of doing it if you want precision. If you just want to apply a transition that dissolves between two, which is the most common. There's 3D ones like the cube spin and the slide and a little spiral. Those effects are going to be in the effects palette. This is the effects control palette, which is where we make the adjustments. However, if we're just applying a transition using the default settings, we're going to find all those in the effects window. And it's a little hard to see what's what here. If a dialog window that you're looking for is not visible, all the palettes that are available are going to be in the window menu. So I'm going to click on window, and I'm going to look for the effects. Here it is, effects. Click on that, and it's going to show these options here. The options for effects, you have audio effects, audio transitions, and video effects, and video transitions. There's presets and luminous tools, I guess that's what it is. I don't even know what those are because I haven't used them. Presets are probably effects that you put together yourself. We're just going to focus on the video effects, the audio effects, audio transitions, video effects, and video transitions. What's the difference between an effect and a transition? A transition is an effect that you apply between two clips, where an effect is something that you apply throughout an entire clip. Coming up, I think some people are late. Letting somebody in.
So if it's not used in the transition, the effect is used in the shot or clip itself.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the difference between effects and transitions. Transitions are basically effects, except they only apply between two clips.
And usually transitions are usually much shorter than.
Yeah, they're going to be
about
maybe
2 seconds, 5 seconds, 15 seconds.
maybe 1 or 2 seconds. 1 second is 30 frames. So I'm going to go to video transitions, and I'm going to go to dissolve and cross dissolve. That's the most standard transition in the industry. Excuse me, this is a dissolve transition. And to apply that, you drag and drop it between two clips. Release, and the transition takes place. And I will use the arrow keys to go frame by frame just so you can see that transition in effect. So I'm going to start at the beginning, I'm going to go forward, and as you see, the transition takes place. What did I forget to do for the second clip here?
Make it
Enlarge it.
Enlarge it, right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
You can put an effect on it, make it blow up.
Yeah, right. That's After Effects.
Oh.
Yeah, all those Hollywood special effects are done in After Effects.
Okay.
You can do some basic stuff in Premiere. Like when I did your music video, we had some animated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those were clips that somebody else created, and we just dropped them in there.
Yeah.
If you want to create that stuff from scratch, After Effects is the program to use if you're using Adobe Premiere.
Okay.
Say you apply a bunch of settings to a clip and you want to keep everything the same setting with other clips. You can copy and paste those settings. So in the effects controls, I'm going to select motion, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to select copy, because I want this clip to be the same as the one I enlarged earlier. Click copy. I'm going to go and select the second clip that needs that setting. I'm going to go into the effects palette and right click and click paste. And boom, it makes the first clip the same setting as the second clip that I just added.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I copy and paste the size setting for one clip and paste it into the other clip so that both of these clips have the same size setting.
Okay.
Here all the way through Friday because you are amazing.
You're all invited. It's about an hour and 50-minute
So-
documentary.
So as you probably noticed, the transition there.
And I hope you're here all the
was,
way through Friday because you are.
The transition there was kind of crude. That's because it hasn't been rendered yet. If you do have a computer that has a graphics card in there, it's going to do it in real time, where it won't look as choppy. If you don't have the convenience of having a graphics card and you want to see what that transition looks like in real time, you have the option of rendering that sequence. And if you go to sequence, you can render the effects in and out. And the shortcut for doing that is pressing the Enter key if you have your sequence selected. So rather than clicking on that, I'm going to select my sequence. And you know it's selected because you've got the yellow lines around it. And I'm going to press the Enter key. And it'll render everything that we've done so far and play it as if it's already been created, as if the file has already been created, the final file that you submit to your television network or to YouTube.
One
yeah.
question about rendering. Once you render something, it's not like chiseled in stone. I mean, in terms of what it is you render, you can always edit
And I
then
hope you're here all the way through Friday
render
because
again, right?
you
Yeah.
are amazing.
The only thing is, if you make an edit on that sequence, you're going to have to re-render that area that you changed.
Okay.
So as you can see, that that transition is pretty smooth.
And I hope you're here all the way through Friday because you are amazing.
You're all invited. It's about an hour and 50-minute documentary.
Very smooth. Love it.
Yeah, it seems like they're talking about the same thing, even though I took those clips from two different areas.
Is your door open?
Oh, they need to get in?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
let's see.
I know you let people in, but I haven't seen it. I'm sorry, guys. Tell me your names again.
I'm Charles.
Marshawn.
Marshawn.
Ashley.
Ashley. Okay. Okay. It's fine. I'll talk to you after the
Alright, the next thing that's good to know is how to apply titles. When you're showing somebody something you've created, you want to let them know what it is that they're going to see.
They call this attribution. Sometimes they call it credits.
Credits,
Special opening
attribution,
and ending credits, that's what it's called.
that's more specific for giving credit to, where it's due. You attribute something, which includes, letting people know what they're about to see.
So I know that in YouTube you can do annotations, so which is much easier on YouTube than Adobe Premiere.
Yeah, Adobe Premiere is going to give you a lot more options and more precision. So I'm going to go to the beginning of the clip, and I'm going to add a title on top of this. So when we created the sequence, there was also an option to create a title. So File, New.
I'm sorry, when you rendered the video, the clips,
It rendered it into a preview file, which is something you delete from your computer when you're done using it. And it's not the final file. It's just creating that preview file so you can see what you've created in real time.
does it automatically do, like say you have 4 clips up there instead of 2? Does it automatically do the whole thing, or does it just do...
It will do from, if you haven't, you can set in points and out points on your sequence. If you haven't set any in points or out points, then it's going to do the whole thing. If you have a big project and you don't have time to render the whole thing, just to see what you've done in a small area, then You're going to go to the areas
Wow.
that you want to preview. Press I for endpoint
Are amazing.
and O for outpoint. Press enter or click render in and out, and it'll just do that area that you selected on your sequence. So titles, I'm going to go to File, New, and Title. Give the title a name. The reason why it put this title screen all the way off the screen is the last time that I used this program, I had a second screen connected to it, and I had what was called extended desktop. Basically, it's two screens where you have your desktop expanded across them. So you can drag your mouse from here to the second screen and then back again. And the reason you want to do that is to increase the screen estate that you have to work with. And Adobe remembers that, and it leaves things the way you last had them. So I'm just going to drag it back here so we can see it. And there's a lot of different things you could do here. You could create boxes and circles, kind of like what you've done in PowerPoint. Create like a little box, and then you could have a text box on top of that, apply different color settings to each of them. I'm just going to add a title, and you do that with the text tool. There's two text tools. There's one for a vertical text, and the other one, which is most commonly used, horizontal text. So I'm going to select the text tool, and as you would in Photoshop and even PowerPoint, you would drag to size that text box where it is you want it, and then release the mouse key. It defaults to left justify. Like a word processor, you have the option to center justify, right justify, etc. I'm going to center justify, and that's going to put the cursor in the middle and center everything. So I'm going to type my message. What do you know about aliens? Question mark. And I'm going to select all that text and size it. It's Control A to select it, or you could use the mouse to select it or an area. And as we were changing the same idea as changing the size of the video that we did on the sequence, we're going to change and increase the size of the text. Just the enter key, just to kind of center it. And contrary to what you think,
You just hit enter for that to drop down to the center?
yeah, you could also move the text box as well if you want to be a little bit more precise. You click the selection tool, and then you see that the little boxes around the box show up. That means whatever you drag here, you're going to be dragging that text box.
Okay.
So there's a lot of settings to play with. When you select the text box, for example, it's going to have all the text settings. A lot of that I don't feel I need to go into because it's very specific to doing very specific things to your text. If you want presets, they're in the bottom here. These are presets that have specific settings here, including the font size, the color of the font. Does it have a shadow behind it? What is the size of the shadow? Or is the text squeezed real tiny, or is it expanded wide out? All that stuff is in here. And if you want to use a preset, see something here that you like this one with the glowing red behind it, you can change it to that.
Aliens!
Now, contrary to what you think, obviously if you're going to keep something, you're not going to click close, or you're not going to click on the X. Here it's different. We're going to click on the X. And we're going to find that text box in our projects palette where we have all the files we're working on. Just right here, and we're going to drag it to where we want it in the
Question,
project.
you didn't have to save that for it to go into the project file?
No, there's no saving. It's automatically saved into your project window. I'm going to drag it, and this is going to be in the second video track. Usually when you do titles over video, you're going to want to transition in and out. What I mean by that is to dissolve in and dissolve out. So it's smooth transition and it just doesn't disappear or appear abruptly. So the same transition setting that we use for these two clips, we could also use for the title. Drag that and apply that to the beginning of the title, and I'm going to drag another one and apply that to the end of the title. So as you see, it fades out the title.
You are.
Do any of you have any ideas of something else that you might want to do at this point that I haven't showed you yet? Yeah.
I do have a question about the transitions that you just dragged over. Did you time those transitions?
No, it defaults to 30 frames, I think. So it's either 30 frames or 15. It's either a second or a half second.
Okay.
And if you want to be more precise, and you don't want 30 or 15 frames, you could put your mouse over that transition area, double click on it, and it'll load that in your effects palette, and you can specify over here how many frames. And it's hard to see on this projector, but it's set at 1 second. So I can increase or lower that number. So 1 second essentially means 30 frames. These are sequences set for 30 frames.
Okay. So you said hover mouse.
Hover mouse over that transition.
Okay.
And double click on it.
Okay. And that's when you'll get the option box right there.
Say if you have a situation where you're zoomed all the way out and it's too hard to click on that little area because it's tiny. As we zoomed in and out of this clip, we could do the same thing the same way with our sequence. We could zoom in and make everything larger so it's easier to work with.
Okay.
I'm going to save this now. In case something happens. One thing you might want to do to spice things up if it's a very boring C-SPAN presentation, like this kind of looks like it is, you might want to spice it up with some music and keep the tempo and keep people engaged in it. We could add music to one of these tracks. So, like we added the video clip, we do the same thing to add other media, including music. I'm going to right click, I'm going to click on import. Now the thing about using music, if it's something you're going to broadcast, you want to make sure that all your licensing is in place. Either you get written permission from an artist to use your music, or you find music that's either in the public domain, or that's Creative Commons. And if it's Creative Commons, you have to attribute the artist, but it's royalty free and you don't have to pay for it. I have music on here. Let's see, that is Creative Commons, I think. Yeah, okay. A couple albums that Nine Inch Nails came out with was Creative Commons. I also have music from the site called audionautics.com, and all that is royalty free, free to use. And there's 3 tracks of that here.
What types of files does this Adobe Premiere Pro accept for audio?
Uh,
Everything?
pretty much AIFF, WAV, MP3.
Does it accept MIDI files?
No, you have to see MIDI relies on your audio card that has the MIDI sound samples built into it. You need to find a way to export that as a WAV or an MP3. And I could tell you some ways after the presentation, since that's a very unique situation.
Because I'm a composer. Actually, I'm a composer too. So.
Yeah, Charles is a composer. He's been composing for many years, and he's very prolific, and he spans many genres of music.
Yeah.
So talk to him if you're interested in that after this presentation. I recommend it. He's very talented.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Hey, just real quick. In the radio room, she's trying to get something from the Mac to play on the SAM. Is there a way to save a file from one computer to the other one, or do you have to use a zip drive or a flash drive?
You could drag and drop it into the iTunes.
The iTunes.
Yeah. And then play it up there.
Okay.
Thanks. So I've got 3 of them right here from Audionautics. First, the composer's name is Jason Shaw, so I can preview them in here. See what they sound like. Kind of hear it. It's kind of like a sad sound. This one's called Epic TV. It's got a little bit more imp to it. Say that's what I want. Open that up. It's going to show up in the project window, and I'm going to drag that into one of the audio tracks. You don't want to go over an audio track that you've already created, otherwise you're going to delete it. So I'm going to go right below this.
You can always
over
undo
speaking to
though,
it.
right?
Yeah, Control Z, undo. That's a standard across programs. Control Z is undo. Or you can go to the edit menu and click undo there. So I'm going to play this out with the music.
And I hope you're here all the way through Friday because you are amazing.
You're all invited. It's about an hour and 50-minute documentary.
Now, sometimes when you drag in music over people talking, the music might be too loud. It doesn't seem like that in this case, but it is in most cases. There's a audio mixer, and the audio mixer is organized by the audio tracks, and you could adjust a particular volume on a particular audio track.
So it's almost like a audio workstation.
Yeah, you could use Adobe Premiere just to do audio work if you want. You could export your final project as a MP3 or a WAV, or any number of other formats that are less likely to be used. Now my mixer isn't loaded by default, so I have to select it here. It's the audio track mixer. And this will allow me to adjust the tracks individually. I could also adjust the master track, that's the mix down, that's everything into consideration. You're thinking, why would I do that? If you're submitting a video program to a television station, a lot of the times they're going to ask for between -8 and -12 decibels as the maximum level. And that's pretty much industry standard. I don't know exactly why that is, but I had this idea of this theory that certain commercials would pay more money to have their audio higher than the regular programming to kind of grab your attention. I could be wrong on that, but that's just my speculation, because you might be watching TV and you might notice one commercial is louder than everything else on the TV. So our music track is audio track 3. So I'm going to go to track number 3, and it should say what track each one is. I just have a small screen here, so it's here it is. Audio track 3 is right here. So I could adjust that right here. And say you want to kind of get a feel for what you're adjusting. You could play out the whole thing and adjust it while it's
And I
playing.
hope you're here all the way through Friday because you are amazing.
Go
You're
all
all
the way up.
invited. It's about an
Go
hour
down.
and 50-minute
And
document.
get it to the point that just sounds right for you.
Now, can you adjust the music for each? Like she was talking and then you made it louder.
I
and
made
that
it
was
louder.
effective.
The audio. I made the audio louder and I made it lower.
Right, but I'm saying to play it because that seemed to be effective. Like just
No,
getting her and then
it's helping you gauge what audio level you would set it at. It's not saving all that information of changing the levels.
right. I know that it's not, but can you?
Not like that. It's a little bit more difficult to change the levels throughout the track, and you do that in the effects palette. You basically set position points throughout that entire area that you're affecting with the audio, and you set one point high, another point low, another point at the same, and another point high. And I can show you what that looks like. You select the clip, in this case it's the audio track. Let's bring it back to the beginning. And you go to the effects. So the effects, and you have the volume adjustment right here. So this is where my cursor is right now. And say the music starts about here. I'm going to set my level point marker right there, and if you see, it puts like a little marker right there, and that marker is 0 decibels. 0 decibels does not mean zero audio. There's a audio convention for decibel levels. 0 decibels is at like the optimum level or the native level of that audio file. So a lower level, like I said before, like negative 8 to 12 decibels might be what you submit your file to television station. Infinity, negative infinity is actually no audio. It's kind of a weird convention. So I'm going to go to a point in the audio where I want to bring up the volume. Say I want to bring up the volume right here. I drag over this number right here and I make that number larger. It goes up to a maximum of 6 decibels, which is your loudest. And you can see what that sounds like.
And I hope you're here all the way through Friday because you are amazing.
You're all in.
It's hard to hear because, again, at our audio mixer, I had everything down on that track very low. So I'm going to bring that up. And now you should be able to hear the change.
And I hope you're here all the way through Friday because you are
There it
amazing.
is. And we just set 2 points. Basically, we're trying to start low and end high. So if we go back to those effect settings and we want to be a little bit more elaborate, we set more points to adjust audio differently throughout the entire clip. This concept is also the same for effects. If you want to apply, for example, a transparency of one clip on top of another clip, you would do it the same way. You would set your points of change throughout the duration of what it is you're affecting. So one other important thing that we did not go into is our tools palette. Right now we basically talked about this tool right here, which is the selection tool, or we haven't talked about it, that's what we've used, which allows us to select a clip select transition, or drag and drop or move a clip from one track to another track. There's other things we could do on the sequence other than that. The most notable ones is the razor tool. So you have a clip and you want to cut it in half and move one part of it somewhere else in the sequence, you would use the razor tool, and the razor tool will cut the clip that you select or that you click on where your cursor is at. So say I want to cut this clip right here, which is we're talking about something that you're being invited to. What it is, I don't know. And what that will do is put a slice of the video and the audio that's associated with that video. And when you go back to the select tool, you could move that new area that you cut somewhere else. Control Z to undo that.
Question, when you do that slice, how is it that you're making sure it's not slicing through what the man is talking about?
You're going to position where it is you want to slice.
Because I see the red line going through everything.
Yeah, it's only going to slice the clip that you click the razor tool on.
Okay.
It's not going to slice all of them.
Okay, I see. You clicked on the blue one.
Yeah.
But you got an audio file too. It just automatically picks up the audio file
Right,
that goes along with that?
With that clip.
Okay,
There
fantastic.
are times when you don't want that. You want the audio to stay, but you maybe want the video to be black or something else.
Okay.
To do that, you're going to click on your select tool and you're going to right click on the clip that you want to separate from the video and the audio. And you're going to click on unlink.
What is that word?
Unlink.
Unlink, okay. Because I can't see a thing from here.
I apologize. This is the projector we have to work with right now. It doesn't provide, it's pixelated, but not. So when it's unlinked, I could take this audio and move this audio out of it or somewhere else. And I could do the same with the video, move the video out somewhere else. And there's a couple reasons why you might want to do that. Maybe the video footage has some really good visual stuff going on, but the audio is just a bunch of noise or white noise. You might want to just delete the audio from that and just have the music go with the visual. If you want to just delete the video clip and you just want the audio, maybe you just want to have some kind of B-roll visual go with the audio and not necessarily have the person speaking there. You might want to have something related to what the speaker's talking about. Another important tool is the multitrack move tool. We've used the select tool.
I'm sorry, multitrack.
Multitrack move tool.
M-O-V-E?
Yeah.
Move tool? Oh, okay.
We have moved one clip at a time. What if we want to move either a whole roll or maybe all the tracks from a certain point somewhere else in the timeline? It's this tool right here. It's actually called the track select tool, if you want to get specific. Sometimes I use titles to describe things based on what they actually do, and not necessarily the convention of what they call them. And depending on what version of Adobe Premiere you're using, by default it shows 2 arrows instead of 1 arrow. What 2 arrows means is you're going to be moving all the rows. 1 arrow means you're going to be moving just one row, whichever one your mouse clicks on. To toggle between the two of them, you're going to hold down the shift key. So when I hold down the shift key, you're going to see just 1 arrow. They recently changed the alteration of that between this version and the last version, so depending on what you use, just keep in mind that the shift key will alternate between the two options. And then you can just drag that whole part of it, that roll, If you want to drag the whole thing, then just use the shift key to toggle the two arrows, which means all the rows. And move all the rows. Why did it do that? Okay, so I'm going to drag everything back. And drag this back. So another example of why you'd use the razor tool is we have this video footage going only up to 8 seconds, but the audio clip goes on for another 2 minutes. And we don't want that in our final project. I'm going to use a razor tool to cut that off. I'm not going to cut it off at the end of the footage. I'm going to leave a couple seconds because I'm going to apply an audio transition so the music fades out after the video footage ends. Click on that to create that cut, and I'm going to select the part I don't want, and I'm going to press the delete key. And now we got rid of the rest of that music.
I noticed, Jason, that when you drag everything back into its original spot, rather than just doing like an undo, if you drag it back, is there any chance that you can end up in the wrong spot?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it takes some getting used to be aware of that possibility, to avoid that possibility. But you probably saw when I was dragging a whole bunch of tracks or a whole row of a track that I was also allowing me to move it into other tracks. If there's something else in another track and you release the button and it overlaps something else, it's going to delete part of that something else. And unless you do an undo, there's no way to repair that.
Okay. Dangerous stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, this is not Legos anymore. This is knives and fire.
You can't just put it back together.
Right. So now we're going to apply an audio transition that's similar to the dissolved video transition that we've been using here. The same idea for the audio. It's called gain, and gain will take the audio position and bring the volume down to 0 or negative infinity decibels. And it's going to do it at 30 frames, which is the default transitions for the video. So I'm going to click on audio transition. I'm going to go to crossfade and constant gain. And I'm going to drag that to the end of the audio here. And I'll apply that effect of the music fading out. Now I'm going to adjust the volume of the audio just so when we render out our final project we could have it at a level that's acceptable. Let's see what this sounds like.
You are amazing.
You're all invited.
Bring it up a little bit more.
Because you are amazing.
You're all invited. It's about an hour and 15-minute documentary.
Oh, I think I was adjusting. Was I adjusting the right track?
It's voice.
I was adjusting the voice.
I think
All
so.
the way through Friday because you are amazing.
It's about an hour and 15-minute documentary.
Oh, I think I know what it is. The audio on the second track was a lot lower than the other track. There's a lot of features and functions I can go into, and I think this is a good one that I'm going to go into right now, is normalization. I click on the audio track that I want to adjust the audio on, and I can normalize the audio. And what that means is bring the levels up to the optimum level based on the highest audio in that clip. So click on audio gain and click on normalize to peak. 0 is the peak. If you go above 0 decibels, then you're what's it called? You are distorting the audio.
Amazing.
You're all invited.
Now the audio is
It's
much
about
better.
an hour and 50-minute documentary.
And it sounds like the music is at a good level, I think, with the speaking. So,
I'm sorry, you clicked on audio gain,
right.
and then you clicked on normalization, and then what else?
Click on normalize. It defaults to 0 decibels. That's usually what you want. Normalize max peak to 0, and then
Okay.
click OK.
Oh,
I'm going to add a fade out with the video. And I'm going to add credit at the end of the video for the music. So that's going to be another title. Say you want to keep all your titles the same format for the most part. You could actually go to your project window and copy and paste the last title you created. Drag this up so you can see what I'm doing. So to copy, I'm going to right click on the thing that I want to copy, which is the title. And I'm going to right click in here, I'm going to click paste. And now I have a copy of that title. I double click on that copy of the title. It's going to number whatever the last one was named, and it's going to put a 2 or a 3 or a 4 after it. You can change all the titles of your files too if you want to get organized, and there's options to create folders, because you might have a bunch of music tracks in one folder, and just kind of like organize your files so it's easy to get to them if you have a big project. Credit to the artist, music. The only reason why it defaulted to another setting is because I deleted the last character of the previous setting. It's kind of, I consider it a glitch that they do that. So if I leave that W there and I begin typing, it's going to save those text settings. So I'm going to say music. And the name of the artist of the music we're using is Jason Shaw. At audio. Get slippery fingers.
I'm sorry, what's the W for?
That was, if I deleted the W at the very beginning, the text style would default to something else.
Okay, I got you.
So I just left it there just to keep the text settings consistent. And then delete it when you're done.
Okay, I've been there.
Right. And then I'm just going to drag this over to the end. The credit. It's going to default to 5 seconds. You could make it shorter, and you can do this with any clip. Right to the end of it. When you move your mouse cursor over it and you see the little red thing with the arrow, that means if I hold down the mouse key and drag it, that I can shorten that area. Or that clip, I can shorten that clip. If I do that with the video, it's kind of like the same thing as using the razor tool and deleting it. It's not making it slower or faster, it's just changing the duration.
How did you get that red thing?
Hover your mouse over to either the beginning or the end of that clip.
Okay.
Play the whole thing.
So I've changed that from 5 seconds to 2 seconds. 11 frames, or 11 seconds to 13 seconds. The difference of that being 2 seconds.
Can you play it out now?
Yeah. This is a funny keyboard. I like to use the home button to go to the beginning. That's the hotkey to get to the front. Here it is, home. to get the beginning of your sequence. So we'll play it out. It's going to be choppy. These little red lines indicate that it has not been rendered. The green means rendered, and the yellow means it may be choppy.
And I hope you're here all the way through Friday because you are amazing.
You're all invited. It's about an hour and 50-minute documentary.
That's it. Pretty good. So say you like what you got, it's the final product. We're going to export it into a file that has everything contained in it that we can submit to a TV station or to YouTube or to your website.
Can
And
you find
Did
some
you
clips
render that
and-
already?
no, there was only a small area that was rendered. That was the green area. And there's an option to include stuff you've already rendered into your final file. That's called include preview files. It can be buggy sometimes, so if you have a fast computer and you need something that's going to be exactly what you expect it to be, I would not check include render or include preview files. So when you're ready, you go to export under the file menu, and it's export media.
Can you make a clip have a certain effect? Like, I guess that would be transitional.
Yeah, transitions are effects.
Okay. Like
We
if
didn't
it-
do any crazy effects. We didn't do any chroma key or green screen. That's more advanced, and we don't have time to go into right now. I mean, with the knowledge you've gained so far, it's not going to be that advanced. You're going to stumble upon it, accidentally drag it in, and with what you know right now, it's going to be something you can figure out on your own. Click on media, and you're going to pick your format. That's going to indicate what's called a codec. A codec is the algorithm that's used for the compression. And Blu-ray discs, they use what's called H.264. That's also what YouTube uses for the videos they host on YouTube. And we're going to go along with that.
H.264?
Yeah, H.264. Now, if you remember, we did set an in point and an out point on our timeline for a small area that we were wanting to render. I think it was your question if you could do something like that or render a certain area on your timeline or sequence. So when you export it, it's going to look at that first, and it's going to think that you want to just export that portion. You can drag that out to the full extent of your clip. These little bars down here to get the full segment of what you want to export. Match source, what that means is you're going to be exporting at the resolution size that you set your sequence. Very rarely you're going to want to do something else. An example of why you might want to do something else is maybe you want it smaller than the sequence because you're putting out a video for people's iPhones. The resolution is even less than with the Premiere of an iPhone. I don't know, that might be different now with the new iPhone. And then output name. If we click on output name, it's going to give us the option to put it somewhere else we want to put it, and it's a good idea to keep all your files in the same location of the same project. Keep things organized. Put that on my USB hard drive here, and I don't exactly remember what I called it. Training, I called it training. So
Yeah.
put it there. And then the file name is called something. It's going to default to the file name of the title of your sequence. At the time, I couldn't come up with anything other than something, so that's what it's going to be. You can change the file name to something else if you want.
So you need a location name and a file name.
Yeah,
Okay.
not a location name, but a location where you're going to put that file. Which is
Okay.
going to be on a certain hard drive that's in a certain folder.
Okay.
and it's going to default to export video and audio. I'm not going to change that very much. And very rarely are you going to change the settings under video encoding. The only time you're going to do that is if the network you're submitting your content to has strict specifications for the format. Otherwise, you're not going to do that. There's two ways to render. You could either queue it or you could export it. And there's only one difference between the two of them. The difference being that if you queue it, it's going to use a program separate from Adobe Premiere to render it, which means you could render something and then work on another video project. Whereas if you export it, it's going to use Premiere to render it, which basically makes Adobe Premiere a door stopper until it's done rendering your project. So you can't do anything with Adobe Premiere while it's actually rendering something inside Adobe Premiere. So we're just going to export it now because we don't need to do anything else with Adobe Premiere at this point. So our clip is 8 seconds long. It's going to take about a minute to render 8 seconds of footage without a render card. There's other applications you'd use if you want to make a video DVD. I know Apple comes with iDVD, which is originally part of the iLife package, and that makes it pretty easy to make a video DVD with menus and stuff. If you want something a little bit more simple than iDVD on the Mac, there's a software called Burn. If you're trying to search to download it, just Google OS X space Burn, and it's open source, free software. It works really well creating video DVDs on a Mac. On a PC, the options are not so easy in terms of free software. There's a lot of paid software that'll do it. The one that I use is called iSkySoft. And
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? iSky?
Soft.
S-K-Y?
Yeah, S-K-Y
Soft.
S-O-F-T. And that's $50. It does more than just create DVDs. It also converts file formats real quickly, and it'll take advantage of whatever graphics or render card you have in your computer.